Well, it's now been over 8 years since I started an experiment to stop paying rent and to live out of a van, a minivan no less. Let's talk about it. 8 years ago, I was working a dead-end job, I was deep in debt, and I didn't have a lot of options to get out of that bad situation. So that led me to thinking a little bit outside the box for my living arrangements. So I went and bought this van and converted it to make it comfortable for myself. So today I want to show you a little quick tour of the van, real simple build. And then after that, I'll talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages I've had from living out of a van over the last 8 years. So the van is a 2015 Ram ProMaster City. And it's a little dirty at the moment, but this is real van life. This is how the van normally looks for me. And since I started out van life in Southern California, the very first thing I added to it was a MaxxAir Vent Fan to try to help with the heat. And then I added this 150-watt solar panel. This is a panel that used to be sold by Renogy. It's now discontinued, but it's worked out very well for me. I have found the need to have a little bit more power though, so last year I added a second solar panel to the back of the van here. This is just a single 100-watt solar panel, and it's really helped with my power needs. And those two solar panels are connected to a 100 amp hour lithium battery that I have mounted inside. That gives me all the power that I need to be able to not only run my vent fan, but be able to keep my phone and iPad charged, as well as gives me enough power to have a fridge-freezer combination that makes it very nice and convenient for me to have food on hand and be able to cook for myself. And speaking of cooking, I have a 15,000 BTU propane cooktop that I've modified a little bit to suit my needs. This is connected to a 2-gallon bulk propane tank, and this allows me to cook anything I could possibly want, as well as my favorite thing to make, which is coffee. Now, even though I do drink a lot of coffee, I sleep very well, and partly because of my very comfortable bed here. This bed is almost 7 feet long. It's only about 30 inches wide, but that gives me enough room to really stretch out and sleep comfortably. My original bed did wear out after 7 years, and so last year I had to rebuild this bed. So this is a newer addition to the van here, and I really like it. I think that having a bed set up all the time is the way to go for me. And it gives me this kind of nice galley style setup here in the van that I think takes advantage of the limited space that a minivan offers. So you might have noticed that I'm not in the desert anymore, which means I need a heater from time to time. And I do have one mounted back here. This is mounted on a flat panel TV mount. This is an Olympian Wave 3, and it is a propane heater, which is awfully convenient for me because this hooks up to the same tank, 2-gallon tank that my stove is hooked up to. So a nice and convenient heater, and it's a very safe heater as well. I do have a backup heater because I don't like being cold, but this heater has never set off my CO meter, which is something I can't say about my backup heater. So this is the heater that I rely on most of the time. Now, other than the heater, this side of the van is a little bit less interesting. It does have this cabinet that I built to hold most of my clothes. I keep all the clothes that I wear on a regular basis right here so that they're easy to access. This is also the spot that has my electrical service panel. So there's fuses, there's the charge controller for the solar panel and battery, as well as a light switch here. That's about all that's going on over here. The much more interesting side is my workstation on the other side of the galley. This side of the van is the more working side of the van. Not only do I have a stove always at the ready to be able to cook my own food, but more importantly, I can make a cup of coffee whenever I want it, and I always want a cup of coffee. So it's nice to have this here and accessible. And then moving down here, I have a stainless steel work surface. This is a restaurant wall shelf that I have repurposed as a work surface because it works very well for the space here. And then continuing on with that restaurant theme, I have a restaurant wall sink that is incredibly important to me because with this sink and having running water, I'm able to clean up every morning, take a little bath every morning, keep myself clean. This has been something that I couldn't have done without for the last 8 years. So that's most of the important things. There are a few things I left out, like my water filter back here. Not everybody's interested in that. I am, because I drink a lot of water as well as a lot of coffee, so it's nice to have a good, fresh, clean source of water for both of those things. But that's about it. Not much has changed in the van over 8 years. The galley setup has stayed the same, but there have been some things that have changed, and that brings us to talking about the positives and the negatives of living out of a minivan for an extended period of time. Now, straight away, I want to say that the size of the van is a positive for me, and definitely not a negative. And there's several reasons for that, but one of the big ones is that I am most happy when I'm outside. I really enjoy walking, and so I want to be outside, standing up and walking, especially if I'm in a nice place like I am today with great weather. I want to be outside, so it doesn't matter to me that the van is small. The thing that I need a van to do is to make sure that I am sleeping comfortably, have a place to cook, make coffee, clean up. The other things don't really matter. I don't know if you've noticed, but I don't have a TV anywhere here. I don't watch TV. I actually can't stand to watch television or movies at all. The thing I want to do is I want to be outside. If walking is a hobby, it is my favorite hobby. Coffee would be right up there too, but the van being small is a positive because it is economical. So all the things that I know I'm going to have to spend money on regularly with a vehicle, like fuel and tires and brakes, all those things, are much less expensive with a smaller van. So the van size, definitely positive. Now, that's not to say that I didn't really surprise myself with just how comfortable I would be living out of such a small space here, but there have been other surprises as well. And this one might be a bit TMI, but it's been really good having a toilet with me wherever I go. I think we've all had to subject ourselves to a gas station toilet that wasn't the best experience, but we didn't have any choice but to use it. Well, I haven't had to deal with any of those experiences for the last 8 years because I have a toilet here in my van ready for me whenever I need it. And along the same lines, it's been really nice having a sink with running water. It's the first thing that I go to when I get done shopping or I fill up with gas. I just pop back and wash my hands quickly and easily. These are things that were positives that I didn't foresee being positives when I first started out 8 years ago. Of course, there are some negatives and drawbacks to talk about, and at the very top of that list, for my experience, is the cost. A lot of people say that van life is cheap, and that has not been my experience, unfortunately. Now, I do have some things working against me. The van has had some mechanical issues, some major mechanical issues that I have both had to deal with in the past and are coming up in the future. In fact, the engines that they use in these ProMaster City vans are being recalled by the factory because of some faulty engineering. I mean, imagine that, Chrysler making some bad engineering choices. Who would have thought? But that has added to the cost of me living van life. The other thing is I do have some health issues that I have to deal with. We all have our health issues, but my particular health issues have cost me a little bit more money, unfortunately. And so those are things that do add to the cost of my van life, and it does mean that van life is not the cheapest way for me to live. If living van life were just about saving money, I would have given up on van life long ago. But there are more positives to living van life and making van life a comfortable way for me to live. One of those is that I'm able to manage my health a little bit better. Over the last several years, I've had a very hard time with temperature extremes. I just don't do well in hot or cold. And being that I'm mobile, I can move myself around and find better weather so that I feel my best, while also being able to get myself outside so I can be outside more, walking more. That's another thing that has me feeling better. So all in all, living out of a van is definitely better for my failing health. and is another one of the reasons that I don't ever want to give up on van life. So as a final thought, I do want to say that life has definitely been better for me the last 8 years. I've been happier and healthier than I've ever been over these last 8 years living out of this van. All things considered, it's been just fantastic. Now, for the first year I lived out of the van, nothing changed at all. In fact, I stayed in my same hometown. I kept that same job that I had. Yes, that terrible job that I was trying to get rid of. It took me a little over a year to be able to save up enough money to be able to get out of that bad situation. And I feel like I'm in a much better situation now, although there have been lots of little changes since then. My job has changed a little bit since then. I'm now finding work on apps on my phone. I usually call that gig work because, you know, like a lot of us, jobs are just getting to be a little bit harder to find. So there's been a little change there. And the van has changed a little bit too. One thing that you'll notice if you go back and look at some of my early videos, you'll see that the van was a little bit sparse, quite a bit more sparse than it is now. I know some people say that the van looks a lot cluttered now versus then, but I've found that it's been necessary to keep a little bit more on hand. So I do carry more clothes and more bedding. More significantly, I do carry a lot more food. 2 years ago, I upgraded to a much larger fridge, and this fridge is kind of oversized for my van, but I think it's necessary to carry more food, and I definitely carry more water at all times too, and that's just a sign of the times that we're living in, I think. Nothing to get alarmed about. It's just that we kind of have to be a bit more open to change, and that is definitely one of the other positives. For years I was very stuck in my ways, and living in a van, you definitely cannot be stuck in your ways because you really don't know where you're going to park at night, where you're going to shop the next day, where your next job is going to be. So those are all things that I have had to learn to be not quite so uptight about. So definitely van life has helped me in a lot of ways that you may not see just in this little video. But if you want to see a little bit more and get a little bit more background and a little bit more details, I will put up a playlist at the end of this and also down in the description of this video to some videos that'll give you a little more in-depth look at what I do and how I live out of this van. And I think that's about it. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.